Kev, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. So I was just, hearing from you before about your own path of life. You're the first person in your family to go to university.
Yes, yeah.
You get a job in BT. So in some ways, like, you can see a quite a conventional career path in front of you, can't you?
That's what I thought.
That's what you thought.
Yeah.
But then you get this moment where you get offered to come into this world that's been your life around giving opportunities to young people, getting involved in the community education. I mean, that's been your life for the last 26 years. Yeah. But I'm just curious about that moment, because there you are, you're in BT, you get an offer to come and work in this area, very small startup, someone says to you, would you give this a go?
Yeah.
Can you go back to that time, 26 years? What made you say yes to that?
Yeah. I think it's good to go back and reflect. I don't do it very often, but probably once a year, or particularly when things don't seem to be going exactly to plan, to try and assess why I'm doing what I'm doing. But it's one of those sort of serendipitous moments. I'm a faithful spiritual person, so I do sort of also relate some of that to my experience. But one of the chair of the trustees of a small charity at the time said, "Can we need some help? And we've seen what you've been doing in your volunteer time around the charity to try and raise a little bit of funds for getting a pool table or something of that nature for the kids. The people who are currently running it just run out of steam a bit. Do you think you could just give some more time? But we're going to need a lot more time." So I had to really think about, what, do I do this now? I had obviously a hope to earn a bit of money. I've been studying and thought there was a career path, but I also was motivated by a strong sense of community purpose, about not happy with the status quo, with having it in education, kids' lives, the kids I've been working with on a volunteer basis. So I decided to take a year out. That was the plan at the time. To say, I'll throw myself 100% into this. Try and see if we can give it a bit more purpose to what we were doing with the young people at the time. And see if we can try and raise some resource and funds for more longer term sustainability for the operation, really. And I said that was 26 years ago. Lots of highs, lots of challenging moments, lots of commas and seemingly full stops to some of our endeavours. But I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity that I've had in doing this, and the testimonial legacy has been in a lot of the young people, thousands of young people we've supported over that period of time.
But you didn't know that back then, did you?
No idea.
And I'm imagining that choice. You're a young guy. Yeah. You've studied hard. You've got through uni. You've got into this big company. In some ways, you could have seen, if I stick at this, I'm going to make some decent money. And as a young, I remember being a young man. That mattered a lot back then. So imagine it's running through you as well.
Well, part of it because Mom grew us up, on her own. Still great relationship with Dad, but he wasn't around at the time.
Yeah.
So we were poor, and we came from a family who'd come from the Caribbean, Jamaica, in the early '60s. Answered the call, Great Britain, for workers to come and do the jobs that weren't being done in the UK. But they came to abject poverty, housing multiple occupancy. Not a great welcome in some parts. The old saying of no Irish, no dogs, no blacks. That's what they faced, and didn't make a lot of money. So part of me wasn't just about the experience of me wanting to move from that situation, but almost to honour the sacrifice my grandparents and my parents had made to make a life for them and for me, in essence. And so there was that driver. But equally, I think, in part, my parents instilled a strong sense of social responsibility. My folks were really involved in the church at the time. So my grandparents, I should say, were involved in the church. That's some of my folks. and they put a lot into the community. I think maybe some of that rubbed off on me personally as well. So I think that driver probably at the time, even though I didn't know what the end was going to look like, was the thing that sort of drove me to make that pivotal decision at the time. And I have absolutely no regrets making it, because it's got me to where I am today. Yes.
I mean, that's one of the things about purpose, isn't it? Is you don't know how it's going to go, but there's something matters enough to you to make the step.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, you say it's useful to reflect back. I'm hearing that one of your purposes was to honour the sacrifice of your family, your grandparents and your family. That was one of the purposes.
Yeah.
And there's something else in there about community.
Yeah.
Have you ever sort of crafted or come to a form of words that says, when I made that pivotal life choice, this was the purpose that was driving it?
I think you reflect on that a lot. Last year we opened up in one of our schools. It wasn't my choice, but the school chose to honour the new wing of our studio school that set up 10 years ago, and they called it the Davis Centre. And rather than call it the Kevin Davis Centre, going to my surname, I felt that was in part to honour, not obviously my work, but honour those who've gone before me, my grandparents. And I think when I opened the building, cut the ribbon as it were, I paid tribute to them, to say, I'm sad that Doris and Iris and Cornelius and Isaac aren't here to see this, but I'm really glad that Mum and Dad are here, because of what they did. And although they saw some of the journey, this building will be almost symbolic of their sacrifice, but also hopefully to inspire the next generation of Kevins and Ranjits and the like, who will come to this area to support their own journey, but also the journeys of others as well, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, talking to you, I get a sense of not just you honouring the past.
Yeah.
It's very touching. I mean, notice how touching I feel, moved by what you're saying. The Davis Centre, that real purpose you have to honour your ancestors.
Yeah.
But also, as you're talking, it's been a big part of your life, hasn't it, to support people's futures, particularly younger people who are, in the common parlance, disadvantaged. They don't have all the opportunities to live full lives. So there's that real sense in you of kind of, I'm here in the present, I'm doing that, but I'm honouring the past, and I'm investing in the future, and that's a big part of what's meaningful to you, I take it.
Yeah, I very early on when I made that pivotal decision to take the year out, as it were,
which became your career, not a year out.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that kept me honest in the journey was the young people presenting to us the challenges they had in their life. My home stinks, can't get a job, school's not working for me. That has been almost the plumb line, the thing that keeps us straight to say, what is this really about? When you're trying to raise funds or HR issues, whatever it is, why are we doing what we're doing? And we've responded according to that. So, our first school, didn't set out to set a school up. It was just the kids, education wasn't working for them. So we set a short 4-week course using the building. We had an old pub which had a cafe in it, and said, well, let's give them a bit of work experience. And when work experience wasn't enough, give them a bit of accreditation. When that was enough, so let's journey with them a bit longer. So from 4 weeks it became 12 weeks. And then, unbeknown to us, we got the register of the radar of the Department of Education. So, well, you're actually doing a full-time provision here, and you've got to be registered. And registered didn't mean just putting your name on a list. It meant actually becoming an independent school with all the regulation, Ofsted and what have you. And that's what we did. We set up a school, working with kids when kicked out of school, who, at the age of 14, crazy to say that's the end of your life. Let's see what you can do. And grew it from there. From one school, we've got 9 secondary schools. from having 12 students, we've now got 10,000 students, you know, from having 5 or 6 members of staff, we've now got 1,000 staff in our family. So that has been it. And I personally still take so I can't mentor all the kids that I've worked with, but I take probably a handful of 5 young people, and I've journeyed with them, and still journeying with them now, through school and past school, and touch base with them. And I felt that's part of keeping me honest, because I'm less, you know, I can't do the youth work stuff I used to do back in there, but I can still do that sort of mentoring bit to try and help me understand where our operation is going or could go, really.
You start off with being asked to help a local community centre.
Yeah.
You're here now, and I know your journey isn't finished, but you're here now, you've got 10,000 young lives directly in your organisation, the Trust, the Mercy and Trust. That's not been a straight line, has it? There's been lots, you know, you were saying earlier, but I can imagine a lot of struggles, a lot of setbacks.
Yeah.
Now, the specific question I have for you is, how has your purpose helped you or supported you when you've hit these setbacks and forks in the road, or just frankly being told, no, you can't have that?
Yeah. In hindsight, I like to think that I'm a tenacious person. So, you know, which has there's light and shade to that. The light being that you don't give up when things don't go to plan. But also the sort of shade of that is sometimes you should know there might be times when you have to give up and call it a day for your own sake and maybe for projects, and some costs and you just got to let them go. I think for me, as I said, we've talked about the sort of moral purpose from my family journey. I also have a faith which is personal to me, but also the outworking of, I think, the thing that I do is an expression that moves from rhetoric to practicalities. So I think that's how I journey, being, you know, my Christian faith. That's how I journey things. And I think for me, in that's where I found a lot of my strength when things haven't gone to plan. And, you know, there's been times when I've shut the door on my own and sort of woe is me at the moment sort of thing, and thinking, you know, have I wasted my time here, or is that the end of that? I'll go out, move on, and do something different. But I think in that there's the experience, the history, the testimony, the legacy stuff has been the thing that's been almost the springboard, the motivation to press on into the things which are particularly challenging. And I've still got challenges now, you know, but again, I've got a bit more of a reference point now to look at those challenges than I had 26 years ago, I guess.
When you look across these 26 years, I mean, in your words, what's been your guiding purpose that's motivated you through that time?
I think one of our mission statements in the past, and we still use it, is about preparing young people for life. So, which, you know, is a task which you'll do forever. But that has been my motivation to say, you know, if we can get society focused on young people, then my hypothesis is that it can right a lot of wrongs beyond just the young people themselves. You know, our focus on young people has regenerated this part of the town centre, one of the most deprived areas in the country, and built things, not just bricks and mortar, but built lives as well. And that has a knock-on effect for the economic and social prosperity of a locality. So for me, that has been a key motivating factor. And the other thing is about doing things together. And I learned, particularly when we didn't have very much resource, that we couldn't do this on our own. We needed to have collaboration, working with public, private, civil society, working together, trying to find what is in the Venn diagram, that common denominator that we can get that win-win from. And some of it was about on the bottom line bit where you could work on. But also then once you get past that, to say, you know what, you're dealing with people who in the main, I think, have got a heart. And once they've got past the key issues of, you know, how do I keep my boss happy, actually they feel good about, actually I've made some value by supporting a young person or helping him put back into the town where I was educated or originated from. So for me, that has been part of, one of the phrases I use in my non-exec space is the economy of together. In fact, I got a policy paper which, when I was a non-exec of the Local Enterprise Partnership, Black Country, we called it the economy of together. What are the synergies and benefits of the economies you can create by collaboration, particularly as you come out of the pandemic, particularly as we're trying to see a post-EU world. What can we do together that can benefit our society?
You know, when you hear the words coming out of your mouth about your purpose to prepare young people for life, where does that sit in you? Is it in your head? Is it in your heart? Where does it sit when you hear those words?
I think it's probably both in some respects, because there is obviously a motivation within that says, which is part of the human condition, I guess, which is not just cerebral. It is about how can we benefit each other, and we aren't just mindless automatons. We are people. But there's also a logic, as I said earlier, about if we invest in our young people, that it has benefits for society. So there is a way in which you can intellectualize the heart and demonstrably show how it can benefit through practice and almost the recording in memory of what has been achieved and what is therefore the art of the possible in that.
I think that's a really powerful lesson that you have there. I notice when I'm working with organisations and businesses around purpose, there is a tendency to come up with something that is kind of sort of intellectual. But I think what you're teaching us is that actually in our humanity, there is an intellectual part, that there is a rationale. I mean, you were speaking about part of the rationale of seeing how the lack of opportunity knocks on in the ecosystem and creates more problems. So there's a real rational part to what you're doing. But also you feel it, you point to your heart. You're not scared of owning that bit. In fact, you're saying that's an essential part of our humanity. So for you, purpose is something which is really head and heart. It's got a rational component, but it's part of that kind of our human nature, to care for each other and to see our humanity together.
Yeah, I think that decision I made 26 years ago, was like early 20s. I think I early on understood that life wasn't just about, I wanted to have a successful financially beneficial career, but it was more than just that. And if I can have a go now, then I would feel better and more genuine about myself. But I think I'd like to think that is the desire of everybody. I'd like to think that if they took the risk to do it. And I think probably in the recent years with the pandemic, people have made new life choices. They've seen loved ones pass or been very ill, and they've asked themselves the question, what's important in life? What are the things I really want to do? And if I don't do them now, will I have years of regret? Fortunately for me, I wasn't presented with that sort of moment of what COVID and because I made the decision many years ago to say, I'm going to take that leap now. And as I said, it's been a very rich life as a consequence of that. And I'm glad that a lot of people are, in more recent times, because of the challenges, the horribleness of the last few years, people are making that decision to make that choice.
It does come down to choice, doesn't it? And one of the questions I get asked are, what are the benefits of leading a purposeful life or being a purposeful leader? But I just think the way you said it is so simple and eloquent. It's the richness of life, the feeling inside, the genuineness of your life life. I mean, that's for you, it sounds like that's been over and over the payoff to you personally, let alone to others, of the choice that you made.
I mean, my wife would say to me, because one of my things I have to learn from is not to quickly move on to the next thing. And one of the things I've learned is to take a pause and to celebrate when something's happened, or, you know, even if it's something simple as, let's go and have a curry and say, hey, this is great, rather than thinking I've got to move on to the next thing to solve. And, you know, because I think that the danger is sometimes even the journey of being purposeful can become almost robotic, and maybe some of the heart can be moved away from that. You've got to make sure that you remember why you're doing what you're doing. So pausing and reflecting, I think, is a good habit to have. I'm glad I've got people around me who give me a big nudge to say, hey, let's just pause, let's just celebrate, let's just reflect, let's give thanks. You know, what's happened here is good, and remember the people in that.
I'm curious about your reflections. One of the things that's happening in the business world is, after many, many years of what's called in the business schools the shareholder primacy model, you know, built on Milton Friedman's economics, you know, where he talked about the only role of a business is to generate profit for shareholders. Now, that's been the normal in businesses for decades now, but it's really starting to be challenged. And part of that challenge is businesses and leaders really grappling with how do we move from that convention to creating organizations that serve multiple stakeholders. And, you know, profit is important, but it's not the only thing. So they're embracing their role in communities, their role with climate, with the ecology of our planet, with other stakeholders they touch. So that is a movement that's happening in business world, and it's like, that's why this series is called the Purpose Pioneers series, because it's very pioneering ground. And I'm just curious what you've got to say, because you really are a pioneer. You know, you've written about, you're in the midst of what you call, is it the economy of together? That's the phrase. You know, what have you found out through your activities about the economy of together, and how we can create businesses that are, profit is important, but it's not the only thing, and they're working to multiple stakeholders?
I mean, I'm a chairman, I'm a CEO, I'm a non-exec director, but if someone asks me who I am and what do I do, I still go by the title of social entrepreneur, which I'm not saying is the perfect and best descriptor, but it's a good one in the sense that the pioneering aspect of what I do is key to what I'm doing, but there is a social purpose to what I'm doing. So whether that's setting up schools, whether that's setting up social businesses, whether that's advising NHS or housing associations or social finance, it is the social part which has been the key thing, that sort of triple bottom line. That's the thing for me. And making sure that evidently we've got to make things sustainable in the sense of, you know, how do we keep the lights on? But it is not the primary driver for one's commercial existence, you know, and nor can it or should be, because we've seen when profit is the only a major motivator, at its excesses, we see some failures in responsible business activity, whether it's in our waters or our energy firms and the like. You know, we can't live like that. And, you know, we are human beings, we've got responsibility to each other. So the whole responsible business, or it used to be called CSR, that's been going for some years, as you know. But I think probably more so now than ever, whether it's on the sort of ESG bit, firms, big and small, are taking it more seriously, and which is good. And I'm glad. You know, it obviously presents opportunities for us to help articulate maybe some of that message where people are looking for answers, particularly throughout the pandemic, when we learned from policy papers together, which I managed to get all the full local authorities in our area to sign, the hospital, the NHS and colleges and the like, to say there's no pounds and shillings against the what we're going to do, but the intention about working together, collaborating together on the areas of employment, education, equality and environment. We recognise that even the best of us economically aren't going to tackle this on our own. It requires a collaborative approach from big firms right down to the everyman on the street. What can we do to find a narrative that we can all sign up to that end? And that's what I'm still working through today in my current roles.
Do you know, if I was to meet a business leader who was asking me about creating this multi-stakeholder approach to their businesses, you know, say coming in saying, I'm running a firm, I'm running an organisation, we have big responsibilities to shareholders, we've got markets judging us by the quarter. How do I create this different approach? I think if I was summarising your insight to them, the thing I pick up from you is the key to it is a spirit of togetherness. It's about actually really looking at how your organisation operates, who it touches, and engaging with that in a spirit of togetherness. We're in this together. Yeah. I mean, do you think I'd be representing you fairly if I said that?
Yeah, and as I said, even the best of us, in the sense of material worth and net worth, you know, those who are doing great things cannot do it in isolation. And I think there is a secret sauce in the togetherness. There is something that comes out of synergy, that comes out of collaboration, that you wouldn't get even with your best laid ESG plans. You know, you do require work. And I said, for me, in some of my current roles, you know, I'll sit down with some of our student councils to try and keep me honest as well, to say what is it I'm doing, even with the virtuous stuff people would say we've done and achieved, but also to touch base on it. I would encourage even the bigger firms to try and get down to almost the lowest common denominator. Say lowest, you know, the common denominator that's closer to the issues, just to keep them understanding what the impact of their decision or potential decisions have on the communities that they're operating in. I think that would be an important thing, because I think out of that will come the positive things that we would get through, like the economy of together, things that we think would happen. So I think that's an important thing I would say would be added to that.
It's a very practical thing, isn't it? It's asking that question. Okay, if we do this, what's the wider impact? Or you might say, what's the resonance of what we do out as it touches different people? And it sounds like when you're working, you're bringing that question in to say we need to think about this impact, not just to our kind of our single bottom line, but to a wider.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sit, as I said, I sit on one of the integrated care boards, which is basically reimagination of what health services look like in a locality, which isn't just reliant on strictly the NHS, but requires other stakeholders to be involved in that, because the wider determinants that affect people's health aren't just rooted in hospitals or a GP surgery. It's about life choices, it's about education, it's about where people live, and the NHS cannot do that on its own. It requires to have engagement in localities, even down to the lowest common denominator, which is a street or postcode, working with voluntary community sector, faith sectors, as well as the private sector, to work together. So how can we deal with issues locally, which will have a longer term impact, which is extremely complex, because sometimes you're not looking at just at the 5-year plan. You've got to think way ahead, you know, people's school journeys and the like in terms of the school career. But also, it requires people to have time to have those conversations, which is sometimes a luxury with the urgency of the moment. And so having to create that space to have the conversation, put value on it, to say, actually, we're going to schedule time in conversations, even if we don't know what the end outcome is, but we know enough to say when those conversations happen, something positive and constructive could happen as a consequence of the dialogue towards our end goal of achieving better outcomes. So I think that is an important facet that I've learned with some of my conversations and journey, and definitely what I take into the roles that I do at the moment.
As you know, Kevin, one of the things we at the Mind at Work are passionate about is we're equipping the next generation of leaders to be purposeful leaders and to create purposeful organisations. So we're working with Polomy, the Italian business school, engineering school. We're working with them to help that new generation. And exactly like you said, we're finding young people coming to that MBA because they're setting out in their career. And just like you, they're saying, I want to have a rich, rewarding, purposeful career that where profit is important, but it's not the only thing. Now, to those young people who are listening, I mean, you're 26 years ahead. You've had all the successes, the celebration, the curries, the knockbacks. You've had all that. Bit of a difficult question, but if you were speaking to them about what it takes to be a purposeful leader in this world, what would you share with them by way of your wisdom or your experience?
Well, it's the same thing I tell Gabriel and Keanu, my guys that I mentor, who've gone on to relatively successful careers. We've been on journey with them for 10 years or so. I think there is that tenacity thing. There is that pause and reflection. There is that, make the right choices. So don't just go for any firm that's offering you a nice pay packet. Look at their values. Look at the things that they're doing externally with the business, because I think that in itself will enrich you, but also the things that will enrich wider society if you've got firms that are motivated or show that they're motivated in those areas. I think having good people around you has been critical. I'm not just talking about professional people, but people who will, as I said, keep you honest, people who will sit with you when you're in the dark room wondering whether this is the right thing to do or not, will encourage you. People who will speak truth to you. I think that's been important, certainly for me. And as I said, it's not just the business professionals, it was Granny Doris, she was in the UK for 50 years and still couldn't speak black country. She still had a Jamaican accent to her, but in her own way.
Hear it in Jamaican.
I'd hear it. She'd tell you, I can still hear it now. She'd still tell you straight, And I think having those sort of people in your life, if you've got them there, treasure them, because as I said, I miss them now, even now, and treasure those moments, those relationships. Yeah, God bless them, miss them. Yeah.
What sacrifices do you think you've made to have this career as a purposeful leader?
It's a good question. I think the sacrifices compared to the goal are worth mentioning in some respects, because the end, the thing
it matters to you so
it matters.
Much.
That's it. So, has there been times where when we've set up businesses, you've thought about paying your colleagues before you ever got a wage? I've had many of those times when you set up something, you think, my goodness, how are we going to keep the lights on for this? Has it been where you haven't had the holidays, or you probably had less time with some of your family because you had to work around the clock? Some of those perhaps, at that latter point, I probably regretted the most, although, great relationship with my family now, but there's been those moments. Probably gone a bit greyer than earlier than that, because it's so involved, it's all intense and immersing, the whole that journey. we spoke. I've done an MBA. Maybe part I felt should I have done some more education earlier beyond my first degree. But when I did do it in the end, it was again not because I was seeking it. An opportunity came, and all it did was probably give some articulation to what I already knew, maybe a vocabulary to what I know that may help me be more conversant with the next partner who is conversant in that sort of vocab. But I think probably those have been my primary sacrificial thoughts. Maybe I should have slept a bit more. Probably that's it. I'm not a great sleeper. That's the honest answer. Yeah. Maybe I should just be a bit more chilled out. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm hearing you name real sacrifices. Of your time with your family, which sound like the one that really touched you. Sometimes you're foregone pay to pay others to keep the lights on. Yeah. It's been really involved. You've given so much energy. But what I'm hearing you say through it is that those sacrifices really pale compared to how much your purpose matters to you.
Oh, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. The stakes are so high, particularly in localities like this. So I'm still, I do stuff around the country, but I am still embedded in the Black Country.
Yeah.
Where there's lots of opportunities in the sense of what's the art of the possible, but it's in the art of what is possible. We're faced with some of the realities of where we are at in some of the indices and lack of opportunity for some of our young people. It's worth it because of the stakes are high, and we have to do it, or someone's got to do it. And sometimes sometimes I walk around the town when I'm in the town and see all the students wearing the uniforms of the direct schools that I've set up, and they all have no clue, some of them, that they're there because someone made a choice to say, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we tried to get into one of your schools. We said, we're here to see Kevin Davis. Yeah. Who's he?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Who was Kevin Davis?
Yeah. But
But
that speaks to something, doesn't it? This is not about you or your ego. It's about what you're serving.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was very honoured when they named one of the wings of the Davis Centre. But but for me, every kid wearing a uniform, there's a story, there's a journey for them, and if I, as a little cog, can move other cogs to help that journey with them, I think that has some reward in reflecting on that in itself. You see, and as I said, it's not always about getting big buildings done and whatever else will done after it. It's about the incremental steps sometimes. That will help you and help others. I think that's always important to learn, particularly if you're careful not to get on your high horse or get overly proud about the things you've done. It's a level effort for you. I think that's always a good thing for me to reflect on these things, but in that way. But yeah.
We've been talking about purpose today, and this series is devoted to it. It's often a difficult thing to define. Just want to invite you to give it a go. We've been talking about it. You're clearly very purpose orientated as a human being. How would you define, so to say, what the force of purpose is in a human being?
I mean, I'm a faithful person, so I believe I'm not just bricks, mortar, rat race. I do believe there is something beyond us human beings which has some direction to one's existence. That's like one thinks that way, but a lot of people do think that way. And so for me, I do feel that there's maybe some hand in that. And I tend to reflect on that, and that we aren't just here by accident. And so part of my journey in life has been about what does that mean? And consequently, some of the decisions I've made, certainly morally, has been as a consequence of that exploration. So for me, there's a purpose in that. But also, as I said, about, I don't think I'm going to die tomorrow, but, when I do go, can I look back enough and see whether I've made any difference at all? Will there be any impact from my life, a positive impact on my life? And at the moment, I'm at peace with what's happened over 26 years. I still think there's a lot more to potentially do, even if I don't know fully what that's going to look like. And I want my kids to be proud of me in terms of the example I've set, highs and lows. Those who are biologically related to me, and those who aren't as well. And if I can do that through my life experience, then I think that is a purpose which I will continue to pursue. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, Kevin, is that for you, purpose is like that inner compass, the inner barometer of, am I making a difference, contributing in a way that I feel at peace with?
Yeah. I think fundamentally, that's a question everyone is searching for peace, and will pursue it in different ways. Some successfully and some not. But I think that perennial question about who am I, why am I here, what's my life about, is a question which at some stage people will ask themselves. And for me, what I'm doing is answering that question. What I'm doing is an outworking of that question. Yeah, for me, it is definitely here rather than here. That's where and why I'm doing what I do, I guess. Yeah.
So purpose in that sense can be understood as starting with an inner reflection. Mm-hmm. Who am I? Mm-hmm. Why am I here? Mm-hmm. What is my life about? Yeah. It starts there for you, and then the answer to those questions then come out in your actions, in your activities. Yeah. But then it sounds like what you're saying is that there's a sort of arc back to here, and you just say, you're pointing to here, saying it's felt here. And the arc back is something that feels like a piece that I'm living in a way that answers those questions authentically to me.
Absolutely. And, these are big questions which philosophers greater than you and I have been asking themselves for centuries. But asking that question for good reason. This isn't a new thing. This is something which we're all trying to discover and contextualise in modern 21st century life. Yeah. And for me, this is how I'm working that out. It's a conversation I will have regularly with others who are on that same journey, but manifests itself in different ways. And I think for one way or another, it's a question that some of our young people hopefully will ask themselves that question as well, which will help them hopefully make them more informed decisions in life rather than just reacting to situations. If there can be a bit more pre-reflection before some of the decisions that they make, I think that will help them in the long run as well, particularly with all the challenges young people face at the moment in current modern life.
I think you're right. I noticed I'm interested in philosophy, and I was even quite recently reading some Plato. And Plato is talking about purpose all the time. So although it's quite a buzzword in our society now, like you say, it's timeless because it's a timeless human question. Who are we? What matters to us? What life do we want to lead? I love the way you describe that. It starts on the inside, it comes out, and then it comes back. I think that's a way of thinking about purpose that people watching this can really relate to that. But as you say, the point is, this is a timeless human question, and we're asking it now in the 21st century.
Yeah.
We have problems that are different to what the ancient Greeks faced, but we're human beings like them.
Yeah.
And so we're asking the same questions. We're just asking them now.
Yeah.
And we're using purpose as a way of kind of summarising that eternal human question.
Yeah, I think the danger of us in our sort of rational Western society at times is that we it's not intellectual enough to talk about that bit there, because you can't measure it, you can't put it under a microscope. But I think we lose something, which has been lost in that pursuit of intellectual understanding of life, that we're poorer for as a society. And I think if we can get back to that, or keep reminding ourselves of that, beyond just the great enlightenment journey we've had in Western society, that there is something more to existence in my book than just what we can measure. And I think, I don't think the two are, so what I'm looking for.
Mutually exclusive.
No, I think you can do it together.
Yeah.
You see, and there is a sense and a logic you can get from pursuing here that then manifests itself with the things that you can measure. As I said, in my journey, it might be the school and this, that, and the other, and you can't take the products and the fruits of my journey without trying to understand why I've got to and how I've got to where it is, and it goes all the way back to here for me. It'll be different for others, but certainly for me, that's how I've done what I've done.
So you're making a case for even a stand on. You are someone who takes a stand in your life, aren't you? And sort of inviting us to say, let's create a society and let's create leadership that sure has all the rational components, and what we can measure, but sits alongside the heart and our capacity for meaning, and puts those two together, and in that creates a richer society and creates a richer sense of collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is. I think with the whole conversation around purpose and purpose within business, I think beyond the sort of the Friedman mantra, I think that where else can we, with the challenge we've got, where else can we go? The bottom line won't interpret, strictly speaking, the future that we want for society. And I think the purpose-driven business, the purpose-driven individual, who's reflecting on life, who's reflecting on relationships, who's reflecting on impact, socially and otherwise, is the only way. I can't see there is another way to this. Absolutely.
Yeah. Me neither. Have you seen the Barbie film yet?
My daughters have.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it yet. Really?
Go with your daughters. I mean, I thought, no way, but my daughter took me.
Right.
And there's a line, one of the Barbies says something quite early on in the film, where she says, I can hold a rational thought, a line of rational thought, whilst still connected to my feelings. That doesn't make me lesser, that empowers me. It's just such a beautiful line in it. And I was thinking of it as you were talking about, this is the kind of leadership we need.
Yeah.
Really holding the rational and the emotional together. And like you say as well, really challenging this mantra of, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Or if you can't measure it, it's not of value.
Yeah.
Which to me is nonsensical. Because I would say most, if not all, of the really important things in life, such as love, trust, faith, connection, collaboration, you can't measure them. You feel them. And you feel if they're not present, don't you, like a shot. So
I think folks, I mean, certainly in my early journey, people were very nervous about this sort of conversation. Oh, you know, it's too fuzzy, or it's taking you down. Let's get back to business. Let's get out of bottom line. Or, you know, you can say with age and experience, I don't really care anymore about. It is who I am. By me being authentic to myself, and because I've seen it work for me, and work for others. And, you know, if people get on that journey sooner rather than later, they'll be better and whole people for themselves and for others as a consequence of that. Absolutely. So I think it is absolutely the right thing to pursue, yeah.
And not just work for you, Kevin. I mean, you've created so much here in this community. You know, the school, you know, your integration of schools, education, health, jobs. You know, you're connecting things in new ways as an innovator. And I'm curious, as you look back, you know, maybe a final reflection from you is, what do you feel most proud of in that?
Oh,
It's a tough question.
What I feel most proud of. Again, that's probably the shadow of my journey is that, you know, I have to be forced to do more reflection. And as my wife would say, Kevin, just stop and pause and say what. So I don't always see that things are good and great, in the sense that, because I'm still seeing, turn one other stone up, and then there's still things you need to sort out. There's still inequalities. And even though, you know, we're one of the bigger education trusts in the area, we still, with all the resource we've got, we've still got huge things to deal with. So I think that is a challenge. Because what I'm proud of, would you say? So I suppose I told you earlier, walking around the town, seeing the kids with the uniform on, and them even not knowing who I am, but knowing that the early decisions I made 10, 15 years ago, particularly on the school stuff, is still having an impact on their lives now. I think that is probably one of the things which I'm happy about. I'm happy about honouring my grandparents and finding some way to articulate that with the Davis Centre. I think that's been probably one of the highs in recent times. And maybe that the message of the economy of together, intangible as it is in the sense of it's not a product in that sense of the word, but that people have said we'll sign up to that. I think that will outlive me, hopefully, and maybe address the issues that we've been discussing today.
Wonderful. Kevin, I mean, thanks so much for giving your time today and for speaking. So, I mean, I don't want to just say eloquently, but really from the heart about your experience as a purposeful leader. And I'm really confident that folks watching this who are interested in developing a career that is really meaningful for them and really makes a difference in a way where they have peace in their lives, I'm sure they're going to find what you said really inspiring. So thanks so much for your time.
My privilege. It's been a bit cathartic, I suppose, having the conversation with those reflection moments, but thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Cheers.
Great, bless you.
Thank you.